Let us read together. We thank you, O God, for this new day,
for morning sun and evening star, for flowering of tree and flowing of tide, for life-giving rains and cooling breezes, for the changing seasons, for the cycle of growth and decay, of life and death.
we awake and behold a new day. O God, renew us unto life. Teach us to recognize your presence in creation. Grateful for your gifts, may we dedicate all our powers to your service. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, sokev kefufim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa li kol tzorki.
Baruch atah Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam, anoteinu le'ohev kol. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ma'avir shenai me'enai, u'tenuma me'afa apai. Read together. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, המולל בפי עמו, משובח ומפואר בלשון חסידה ועבדיו, בשבחות ובזמירות, יקדש נמליכך, מלכנו יחיד חי עולמי. ברוך אתה אדוני, מלך מהולל תשבחות. Somebody like to read this poem for us? Volunteer? Thank you.
With the coming of day and night I will enter the covenant of God, and when evening and morning depart I will recite God's decrees. God Most High, you are my righteousness. You teach me goodness. You are the fountain of knowledge, the dwelling place of holiness and the summit of glory. Eternal might and majesty are yours. I will choose whatever you teach me, gladly accepting your judgments. As soon as I move my hands and feet, I will praise your name. When I go out and when I come in, when I lie down and when I rise up. When I rest on my bed, I will sing your praise, and in the company of my friends, I will praise you with the words of my mouth.
השתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך הקדוש בשמיים ובארץ. כי לך נאה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו. שיר ושבחה, הלל וזמרה, ברכות והודאות, מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בשירי זמרה. Let us read the first prayer together in Hebrew and the second one together in English on pages 136 and 137. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Yoseh or uvrei choshev Osei shalom uvrei et hakol Hameir la'aret v'ladarim aleha v'rachamim וטובו מחדש בכל יום תמיד מעשה בראשית. מה רבו מעשיך אדוני, כולם בחוכמה עשית, מל הארץ קנייניך. תתברך אדוני אלוהינו, השבח מעשה ידיך, על מאורי אור שעשית, יפארוך סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני, יוצא המורות. Great is your love for us, eternal God, and abundant your compassion. Our ancestors trusted in you, and you taught them the laws of life. So be gracious to us and teach us. Incline our hearts to hear your words, to know and understand, to learn and teach, and with love to uphold the truths of your Torah. Enlighten us with your teaching, make us faithful to your commandments, and wholehearted in the love and awe of your name. For in love you summon us to serve you and proclaim your unity. In praise your God, in love you have called your people Israel to serve you. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael. Shem kavod malchuto la'olam va'ed. Baruch Shem kavod malchuto la'olam va'ed. Avta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol mo'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת, ושבתך בביתך, ומלאכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, ושכתם רבות על ידיך, והיו לו תותפות בין עיניך, וצחפתם על מזוזות ביתך, ובשעריך. Good and beautiful and true, sound, established and enduring are these words now and forever. True it is, eternal one, that you are our sovereign God and Redeemer. as you were the God and Redeemer of our ancestors. You are our Maker, the rock of our salvation. We have known you always as our helper and our liberator. There is no God but you. Truly you are first and you are last. We have no Redeemer but you. You redeemed us from Egypt and freed us from the house of bondage. And with great joy Moses, Miriam and all Israel together sang to you this song. Page 140.
Adonai sefatai tifta ufriya gita hilatecha.
Eternal God, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hador, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ומשאיר עמהם. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי מתים אתה לא תושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מזריח השמש ומוריד חטב, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, צומח נופלים ברופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומגון מלך, מלך ממיט ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמנת על חיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. קדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאיך. כבודו מלא עולם. מלכנו תופייה, ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך. ציון, לדור, הללויה. דור ודור נגיד גדלך, ונצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. ושיבך אלוהינו ובינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד.
ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
And we like to read the Sabbath prayer, page 142.
We inspired our ancestors to hallow this day for yourselves. When upon its coming we pause to contemplate our life, we learn anew that we do not live by bread alone, but also by the spiritual nourishment we receive when we open ourselves to your influence. We thank you for the Sabbath day and for the opportunity it offers to enhance the quality of our lives. We thank you for its joy and for its peace. May our worship help us to take into our hearts its message of holiness and consecrate all our days by devotion to what is true, beautiful, and good.
Together, our God and God of our ancestors, may our rest on this day be pleasing in your sight. Sanctify us by your commandments, make us loyal to your teaching. Satisfy us with your goodness, gladden us with your salvation, and purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, eternal one, let the holiness of your Sabbath enter our hearts, and may all Israel hallow your name, be exalted by its peace. We praise your God for holiness. We have on pages 144 and 145 what's known as the Thanksgiving part of the Amidah. At the top of page 144 was traditionally the prayer for thanking God for the temple and for the animal sacrifices, which, as you can see, has been replaced by a general prayer and worship. Then there was what's known as the Modim prayer, the general thanksgiving prayer, and then the prayer for peace. I'd like somebody to, if they'd like to, anybody like to read one of those? Yeah.
Which one?
Whichever one you choose.
Is it?
We're gonna
We
do-
give thanks.
Eternal God.
You do the first one,
Yeah.
Kevin. You do the second one, we give thanks. You do the first one.
Yeah. Saya Adonai Eloheinu B'Amchai Yisrael Tiflatom Ba'achava Tikbal Oti V'Rotzon Tamid Avodot Yisrael Amecha Baruch Atah Adonai She'atah Adonai Yirah Malchut.
English.
We give thanks that you, Eternal One, are our God, as you were God of our ancestors. You are the rock of our life, the power that shields us in every age. We thank and praise you for our lives, which are in your hand, and for our souls, which are in your keeping, for the signs of your presence we encounter every day, and for your wondrous gifts at all times, morning, noon, and night.
We praise
Praise
you,
you,
O
God,
God,
source of goodness,
to
to whom our thanks are due.
Grant peace, welfare and blessing, grace, love and mercy to us and to all Israel, your people. As a loving parent, bless us with the light of your presence. For by the light of your presence, eternal God, you have revealed to us the law of life, a love of kindness and righteousness, blessing and mercy, life and peace. For it is good in your sight that your people Israel and all peoples be blessed at all times with your gift of peace. We
praise you, O God, source of peace.
And as some moments of silence, there is a guided reading if you require it or would like it, on pages 145 and 146. Ratzon imrevi, Yehul Ratzon imrevi, Ve'hegion libi lefanecha, Ve'hegion libi lefanecha, Adonai tzuri ve'gali, Adonai tzuri. Anybody interested in Jewish history? Anybody interested in Jewish history? Say yes. Yeah. Somebody who hasn't read would be great. Because the theme today is Jewish history, and I'll make a few comments as I'm already thinking my sermon as we go through. But I just thought, well, anybody would like to read the theme of Jewish history? Not difficult? Yes? I'll tell you. It's on page 321. I don't know whether you always use the themes or not use the themes. Some shuls do, some shuls don't. It's a shame, really, but because there's some really superb material in here. Some of it, of course, gets dated, like everything else. However much you try to write something or create something forever, of course, doesn't always work. But anyway, Jewish history, theme number 43. Hey, if you want to come out here and do it, page 321. Do it all in English. Or as you wish.
In English. These are the stages of the journey of the children of Israel who came out of Egypt. Jewish history may be seen as one long journey which began even before Egypt, when God said to Abraham,
Go
from your country and from your birthplace,
and from your ancestral home to the land I will show you.
Abraham and Sarah were not forced to leave their native land, nor did they go in search of wealth or pleasure. Their errand was to build a society that would reflect God's will and be an example to humanity.
I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you may be a blessing.
Often we've been driven from our homes by war and persecution, crossed the seas in search of safety and opportunity. Sometimes we have settled on friendly soil for many generations, and sometimes we've been drawn back as by magnet to our old new homeland. We have gone up to the land to rebuild it and be rebuilt by it. But always, like Abraham and Sarah, we have known ourselves to be engaged upon a journey not yet ended, to a destination not yet reached, a journey towards a better world. Not all have stayed the course, some have dropped out. But because most have been faithful, we have survived.
You who have held fast to the eternal one, your God, are all alive today.
That Jews should be interested in themselves is understandable, but their experience in history has aroused almost as much interest and comment from outside observers. Their stubborn fidelity to the faith of their ancestors, their resilience in adversity, and their knack for adapting their talents and energies to changed circumstances have ensured their survival long after the Greek civilization, which treated them with condescension, and the Roman Empire, which held them in contempt, were passed into oblivion.
Kingdoms come and go, Israel abides forever.
Surely, we who are Jews should take pride in our history, not to boast, not to gloss over shortcomings, not to idealise or romanticise, and not to dwell on the past, but in wonder and gratitude, and so that from the way we have already come, we may draw strength for our onward journey.
We see God's guiding hand most clearly when we look back upon the history of our own people, delivered from Egyptian bondage, bound to God by the covenant of Sinai, inspired by prophets and instructed by sages. We survived oppression and exile, overcoming time and again the forces that would have destroyed us. We were beset by weaknesses and faults common to all humanity. Yet it is in our glory to testify to the unity of God, to hold up before the world an example of courage, and to keep alive in dark ages a vision of justice and compassion.
Remember the days of old, consider the years of ages past.
Ask your parents and they will tell your elders when they call for you.
Look to the rock from which you are hewn, the quarry from which you are dug. Look to Abraham your father and Sarah who bore you.
In every generation we should regard ourselves as if we personally had come out of Egypt.
Give ear, my people, to my teaching. Turn your ears to what I say.
What
We
you
have
have
heard and known, and our ancestors have told us, we will not hide from our children, but we will tell the coming generation the glory and might of the Eternal One, and the wonders God has performed.
God established a decree in Jacob and ordained a teaching in Israel, charging our ancestors to make them known to their children.
That future generations yet unborn might know them and tell their children.
So that we may put our confidence in God and not forget God's deeds, but observe God's commandments. God of Israel, teach us to understand our responsibility as Jews, to continue the task begun by earlier generations of our people, who heard themselves called in your name, to bring light and blessing to all the families of the earth.
O God, make us worthy of our great past, that we may become builders of an even greater future.
Thank you. And just if we turn back to 321, you can see just the opening part of this week's Torah portion. Ele Mas'e, which means these are the from a root Nasa to go on a journey. So these are the stages. Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, Asher Yatzul Be'eretz Mitzrayim. The children of Israel when they came out of Egypt. And that is the opening words of our Torah portion, gives it its name, Maseh, but in fact that's not what we'll be reading today. Unless you want all 3 chapters of the portion in order that we don't finish too early. Anyway, Kriyat Torah, back to page 400 and, no, 400 and, thank you, page 481. You all know what you're doing. Those of you are doing it. Page 481 will be led by our choir with Ein Kamocha.
Ein Kamocha, Elohim Adonai, Ein Kamocha, Malchutecha, Malchut Kol Ha'olamim, U'Memshaltecha b'chol Tovato.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Gad Elul Adonai iti, u'nramama shema yachdav. So let me just introduce you to the portion before I read a section of it. As I indicated, it's called Mas'eh from. Sometimes I realise that I'm getting on. Of course, some poor guy standing here for 20 minutes. So we're in the very last parsha of the book of Numbers. If you're in an Orthodox synagogue today, it will be a joint portion. They're reading. So you've got a very long, they're reading Matot, which is 3 chapters back, and then they're reading the last 3 chapters, Mas'eh. It's called Matot Mas'eh. And that's why, just so you know, there are 52 portions, but some of them can be joined together. And they need to be joined together because if a festival day falls on a Shabbat, the Orthodox community, or particularly the 8th day of a festival falls on Shabbat, the Orthodox community won't read the weekly reading, they'll read the festival reading. Therefore they fall one behind. Because we keep 7 days for festivals, if they have an 8th day that falls on a Shabbat, we start going ahead. So we've been ahead for weeks now, and we will catch up next week because we'll all be in Devarim, and because they're doing a joint portion today, Matot Masai. Don't ask me what the Reform do because I don't know. But I know that's what the Orthodox do, and that's why we've been ahead, if you like. 3 very simple chapters, because Numbers is a relatively simple book. Moses, it's a narrative book primarily, in which Moses, or the authors of the Torah, are commenting on their journey, but particularly the end of their journey. We're probably talking about the last 2 years of their journey now. That's years 39 and 40. Moses knows that he's not going to enter the promised land. He's been told, you might argue unfairly, we can debate about that if you want, unfairly, that because he struck the rock rather than spoke to it, he's not going there. So in last week's portion, Pinchas, last week if you were Orthodox, not here, we had the handing over of authority, the laying on of hands, the first laying on of hands recorded anywhere, in which Moses passes authority to Joshua, who will, as it were, complete the task and take the people into the promised land. The custom is that all the people who came out of Egypt, of course Moses was one and Joshua wasn't one, but all the people who came out of Egypt will die in the wilderness, and it'll be only a post-Egypt generation will go on to the promised land. So, in the next book we get, in the book of Deuteronomy, which we start next week, Moses' final testament, if you like, in which he repeats everything that he said in the previous 3 books. Not 4, because most of Genesis is many, but previous 3 books. So this portion is, as I said, 3 chapters. The first chapter simply, as you would, unsurprising, reminds the people where they've been. Tells about the wilderness itinerary. Hence it says, these are the stages of the journey which you went on, and describes the narratives that we already had, that you're familiar with, that appear in the book of Exodus, Leviticus, and particularly the early chapters of the book of Numbers. So that's it really. It's simply a description of where the people have been, where they stopped, what happened, and when they went on. Chapter 34 is Moses beginning to look forward now, divided into 2 sections. He's, according to legend, at least part of this is delivered on Mount Nebo where he dies, which is in Transjordan. It's in what's called the surrounding the mountain is called the plains, the crossing parts of Moab, where the tribe of Moab. So you've got Mount Nebo. You imagine. Let me do it this way. This is Jordan. Here's Mount Nebo. Here's the plains of the Moab leading down to the river Jordan, and there's the promised land they can see on that side. You can't see it because you're the opposite way. And the picture, so there's the picture of Moses saying, these are going to be the boundaries of the land, Canaan, the promised land, and here's essentially how you will divide it up. That's what we get in the next chapter. Chapter 35 I'll come back to in a minute, and 36 is really a concluding chapter. It talks about the marriage of heiresses, people who inherit, women who inherit things, and then there's a final statement which we will read. We're going to read from chapter 35, from the beginning onwards. We'll see how far we get. And most of the Hebrew is not difficult. The only really difficult word is, which I have to say I don't remember ever seeing, but I must have seen in the past, tavech, which means the middle of something. Not very significant, but we'll see. Perhaps the only other 2 points I'll make is, I think this is a cubit, isn't it? Is that a cubit? So, you're going to hear references to 1,000 of them, which I'm told is about half a metre. No, half a kilometre. Yes, 1,000 of those will be half a kilometre, 2,000 will be a kilometre. If it's important, you need to know that. Just tell you. The other thing just to say is when you have to measure something from a wall, very interesting. If I ask you to measure from this wall to there, it doesn't really matter whether you measure from the outer part of the wall or the inner part of the wall. Okay? Because the difference is not very large. Do you agree with me? You agree with me on that, don't you? Yeah, it's not a problem, is it? If I say, tell me what the measurement from this wall to that wall is, whether you take, if you were to do it literally, if you were to do it with a measure, take it from the outside of the wall there or the inside of the wall, it wouldn't vary very much. Vary by about 5 centimetres or whatever that distance is. Yes? Not the same when you've got very thick city walls. Okay? You imagine those of you, I mean, you've all been to castles, and when you say measure from that city wall, you know, you can have a castle wall which is really stretched all the way. That's the wall itself. It may have little inroads where soldiers stand. So you have to decide where you're going to measure it from. Okay? Because if I tell you to measure from the city wall, you don't know whether it's going to be a good or a bad thing. Whether you measure it from there, assuming that's one part, this is the inner part of the city wall, or here, going outwards, this is the outside of the city wall, it matters in a thick wall. As we'll see. Or maybe not. Maybe you won't be excited about that either. In the section we have two major ideas. The first idea is that there will be cities which are allocated to the tribe of Levi. When people ask how many tribes are there, it's sometimes very complicated. Right? Or rather, it's not, the number's not complicated because the Torah says there are 12. The question is, how do you count the 12? Because actually, there's 14 people after whom the tribe is named. Right? Well, that depends if you count Joseph as one of the tribes. Right? Because you've got 11 about which there's, no, let me say, you've got 10 about which there's no controversy. You've then got the tribe of Levi, which I'll come back to in a minute, which is 11, let's say. And then you've got the tribe of Joseph. Except we don't appear to know the tribe of Joseph. We only know a tribe of Ephraim and Manasseh. Now, Ephraim and Manasseh, of course, are the children of Joseph. They're half tribes, because that's how you can fiddle the number back to 12. Yeah? 10 ordinary ones, Levi, no Joseph, 2 sons of Joseph, 10 and 1 and 2 would make 13. Right? The Torah says there's only 12. So you have to count them as half. So some people say that is the tribe of Joseph just halved, and other people slightly differently. Now, of course, it doesn't matter to us. It doesn't matter if you're trying to allocate land. But anyway, it doesn't matter for our purposes because the tribe of Levi were not to have a land. The Levites were not given land in the new promised land. They were given cities. They were given 48 cities in which they could live, and in which they could receive housing, and in which they could receive what was called common land or grazing land. When I say common land, I have to be a bit careful because common land implies that everybody can use it. We don't really know, of course, but it appears to be a form of pasture which was reserved for the Levites, but perhaps they didn't own it. I'll come to this in a minute. They were worried already was coming, so what am I going to come back to this? So I will make the point in a minute. So now, so the Cohens, interesting enough, are a subsection of the Levites. Right? So you have to understand, every Cohen is a Levite. Right? Because they're all descended from the tribe, as was Moses, they're all descended from the Levites. Now, there's a Cohen Gadol, there's a high priest, which is only one in every generation according to the theory. There are Kohanim, they are descendants of the high priest, but not the high priest. So there, if you call them priests. And Levites, generally, means the priestly assistants. Together, they are the tribe of Levi. Together, they're the cultic officials, the people who run the sanctuary. Now, if you run it, we don't really know what happened. We don't even know there was a cultic system in the desert at all. But by the time we reached the temple in Jerusalem, there was an organised system. Certainly by the second temple. We can't really say by the first temple. Certainly by the second temple, then we just have so much detail, it'd be implausible that it didn't exist. So we have a very organised cultic structure and sacrificial system. And the priests, including Kohanim, Kohen Gadol, I should say, Kohanim Gedolim in the plural, because they were but you only had one each time, so it was only when that one died, another one came. Kohanim, which were priests, usually sons of the high priest, and Leviim, they made their living from the offerings that people brought to the temple. Because we know there are three types of offerings. There are some which you, the person who brings them, have to eat yourself. There were some which were burnt, completely, as far as we know, completely. And there were others which were part of a shared meal. And when the priests had to eat it all at the same time, otherwise you can imagine. So the priests clearly part of their living, they got from the temple offerings. Hence it was presumably assumed that therefore they didn't need land perhaps. There is an alternative explanation, which is that there's a slight hint of it in the Torah, I think it's in Exodus, that in Egypt the priests were the wealthiest people. And there was a Hebrew suspicion about the wealth of religious institutions. So therefore, if you didn't give land to the Levites, they were less likely to become, rather like the Vatican today, one of the wealthiest institutions on earth. Because at the time, it wasn't buildings and artworks and silver that was of value, it was land. If you didn't give them land, they could never, as it were, be a most economically powerful elite. So whatever happens, the priests, as we're going to hear, don't get land. And there's in fact 48 cities which are called Levitical cities in which priests can live and own and pasture their flocks and other things round about. Of those 48, 6 are ordained as what are called cities of refuge. And these appear to arise from an ancient idea that if you felt yourself to be in danger, or you felt yourself to be in danger, particularly innocent, you ran to an altar, hoping that God, presumably, or whichever God was being sacrificed at the altar, would protect you. So the Hebrew Bible here takes a slightly unique view and says this: if it is concluded that you have killed somebody unintentionally, what we in English law would call manslaughter, then you have the right to run to one of these cities. So you kill a person and you believe that you've done it unintentionally. If you intend to murder somebody, and you murder somebody, that is, you intend to kill them, you don't get the protection. But if there's a fight, or you're driving your car and you run somebody over in the modern world, you might not have intended to kill them, and according to the Hebrew Bible, you would flee to a city. And you would flee to one of these 6 cities because prior to this legislation, it was probably a free-for-all. Okay? You killed my son, I wipe out your family. Simple. And if not that, it was at least you kill my son and I kill your son. That's the least it was. But in many places, you know that isn't what happens. What happens is you killed my son, I'll kill 2 of your sons. You then come to say you killed him, and so it goes on. So there's an attempt, possibly, to try to regularise. And the certificate says there's a specific person in Jewish law called the Redeemer. A Redeemer is not a religious term. It's traditionally, in olden times, you were entitled, if you killed my son, I could kill your son. That was what the Redeemer was. That's how the punishment was redeemed. It's a similar but different concept to eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, where what we're seeing in the Hebrew Bible, it's not apologetic, but an attempt to try and regulate society in some way. Anyway, so you run to the city, and you then have to be tried, by the way. And if the court says you're a murderer, you get thrown out of the city. Right? So you say, I did it accidentally. If the court, whoever the court is, says you didn't, you're away. But if the court says that you were an unintentional murderer, and one of 6 cities, by the way, 3 established by Moses in Jordan, because the people haven't gone in yet, and some of the people will remain. And Joshua, presumably is what the Haftarah is, I don't know, but I can look at it. Chapter 20. So who's reading the Haftarah? Who's reading the Haftarah today? Oh, it doesn't matter. We'll get there. Don't worry about it. Anyway, I think it doesn't matter. I mean, like, we may never get to reading, so don't worry if you weren't prepared. But I think the answer is, I haven't checked, Joshua establishes 3 cities in the land when he goes in. So they're not yet established in the Book of Numbers. But I think if we were to read Joshua chapter 20, which we may get to later on, I think we'll read those 3 cities. So you've got these 6 cities. You run to one, you're found that you were not guilty of murder, you were guilty only of manslaughter, you're entitled to stay there. And more than that, you're entitled to have a normal living. So if you were a teacher in that town, and you had a school with pupils, and you fled to one of the cities of refuge, and found to be a manslaughter and not a murderer, your pupils could come to be schooled by you. Because you were entitled to maintain your life as best you could, provided you remained within the environs of the city. If you left the city, the Golea, the Redeemer, might catch up with you and take vengeance. But if you were within the city, the Redeemer couldn't come into the city, and you were entitled to all sorts of things. You were banned from some trades, but you could have housing. There's a slight difference between... There is a confusion. It is not very clear, because what happens eventually is that the rabbis, talking about Jewish history, the rabbis have to rewrite the Jewish history. Right? They've got this Torah, which is not very clear. They said, the cities of refuge. Are there 6 or are there 48? One of the debates is. What's the connection between the other 42 Levitical cities? And they actually make a distinction to say, in the 6 Paka cities of refuge, you don't have to ask for anything. You automatically, if you turn up and announce yourself at the gate and say, I'm what's called a Rotseach, a murderer, Bishkaga, who did it unintentionally, you automatically get housing. In the other 42 cities, it appears, this is a debate about it, if you turn up, you have to first of all declare yourself and go through some procedure, you might get housing. Anyway, it doesn't matter, that bit doesn't matter. But what happens is, the rabbis essentially have to rewrite the conditions. By the way, this is really fascinating. The rabbis of the time would say, it's the responsibility of the civic authority. I mean, think about our potholes today. Right? We're in Harrow now, Brent. Harrow. Where have you been when you were in school? Still in Harrow. Okay. Right. Some of you know I'm the councillor in Brent. We have 340. Barnet, sorry. We have 343 potholes apparently, according to our local authority yesterday. It's a very generous definition of pothole, but that's neither here nor there. But the Talmud says the civic authorities have to do 2 things. They have to make sure there are plenty of signs telling you how to get to the cities of refuge and where they are. And it says, interesting enough, you have to maintain the roads in good repair so that people don't, so there's no obstruction in getting there. Because this is a Torah commandment. When the Torah says create the cities, don't say create the cities and don't forget about them. It says create the cities and make sure that people know about them with proper signs, and make sure the roads are ready so that there's no obstructions to getting there. Interesting enough. Is there anything else? One other thing, or 2 other things really. One other thing is that according to the Talmud, you're actually allowed to hold public office. It's very interesting what thing. Now, why would the rabbis put that you're allowed to stand for public office? Well, because of course, common office was a Jewish responsibility, and you're a manslaughter, so they're looking at you sympathetically and saying you're allowed to stand for public office. But, says the Torah, says the Talmud, you have to declare that you're a Rotseach, Bishkaga. In other words, you can stand for public office, but you have to tell people your status in the city. And whether that to tell people doing that, I don't know. And finally, remain there until the death of the high priest, And then and then there's the debate about whether you're forced out. Probably not forced out, but you can leave, but you may or may not then be susceptible to God if the Redeemer, if the Redeemer still knows. So we're going to read a little bit about it, but it's a fascinating idea, and then I will, maybe in the sermon, if we get that far, talk a little bit more about how it might be relevant today. We are reading from chapter 35. No, that's not the right place. I mean, you might be in the right place, but I'm not. Let me just find it. Nice big clear print here. Okay, I'm with you. We're starting right up there. Oh, let me come and find it, sorry. Which one? 978 in the Sonsino.
In the Tanakh it's 269.
269, 978, what another one?
Yeah, you must got that.
Everybody got it? Are you with me? Yes? Right. Okay. You're welcome to sit down or stand. Yidabeh Adonai spoke El Moshe to Moses, Arvot Moab, on the literally the crossing ways or the plains of Moab, El Yarden Yericho, by the River Jordan near the city of Jericho, Lemor, saying, Tzav et b'nei Yisrael, charge the children of Israel, instruct the children of Israel, v'natnu leLeviim, and give to the Levites, min nachalat achuzatam, from what you have inherited and possess, arim, cities, lashevet, for them to live in, umigrash le'arim, savivotehem, titnu leLeviim. Go through that again. And migrash, so garash, the root garash means to drive. It can mean to expel, by the way. The Egyptians at one point expel the Hebrews using the same root. But clearly here it means to drive the cattle out of the stables at night. Not stable, what do you call them? Where the sheep live? Folds. Wherever they are, to drive them onto the pasture. So, and the pasture of the city which surrounds it, the cities, you will give to the Levites. Vahayu ha'arim lahem, and these cities will be for them lashevet, to dwell in, migrashehem, and the pasture, their pasture, the pastures of the cities, Yehu will be live hemtam, for their beasts, ulir chusham, and for their I think it's possessions here, so I'm not quite sure what that really refers to. Ulechol chayatam, and to all of their beasts, which is understood to mean, I mean, it's a bit silly really, but the commentators say this refers to non-kosher animals. The behemah are the kosher ones, and these are the ones commonly used, animals that are not kosher, like donkeys and camels. It's a fanciful interpretation. Umigrashay ha'arim asher titnu leLeviim, and the pastures of the cities which you give to the Levites, mikir ha'ir v'chutza, from the wall of the city on its outside, elef amah saviv, shall be 100 cubits surrounding. So it could be that there's two lots here. So first of all, they get, if you imagine, measuring from the outside of the city wall, they get all surrounding 100 cubits. Then it goes on to say, Umdatem michutz la'ir, and you will measure. Oh, I can see why, because it's if you do it from the center. Okay, I got it. I think I've got it. We'll look at the geography in a minute. Umdatem michutz la'ir, and you will measure from the outside of the city et pa'at kedma, in the corner or the direction to the east. Thank you. Alpine ba'ama, 2,000 cubits. Et pa'at Negev, and the direction to the south, the Negev desert, alafim ba'ama, 2,000 cubits. Et pa'at Yam, and to the direction of the sea, which means west, to the Mediterranean, alafim ba'ama, 2,000 cubits. Et pa'at Safon, and to the direction in the north, alafim ba'ama, 2,000 cubits. V'ha'ir bataveh, with the city in the middle. So this is some way of trying to mark out these parcels. I don't quite get how it works. I guess if the city is if this is the middle of the city, it's 1,000 to the edge of the city, and then another 1,000.
Do we know what a cubic is?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
But here's what it says. Ze yehiyeh lahem migrashei ha'arim. This will be for them, that's the Levites, the pasturing lands of the city. Vet ha'arim, and the cities, asher tidnu laleviim, and these cities which you've given to Leviim, et sheish arei hamiklat. So we're going to get a hint about what's going to come in another paragraph. There will also be 6 cities of refuge, asher tidnu, which you will give. Why will you give them? Lanus shama harotzeach, to flee there the rotzeach, that is the manslaughter. Valehem tidnu arba'im b'shtayim ir. So you will add those 6 to the 42, and then it says, Kol ha'arim asher tidnu leleviim arba'im shmonei ir et hen. The et migrasheihem. So it follows logically. I don't need to translate it for you. It just says 6 and 42 makes a total of 48 cities for Levites, and the pasturing land you will give. And then it says, "V'ha'arim," and the cities asher tidnu me'achuzat b'nei Yisrael, and the cities which you will give from the possession or the inheritance of the children of Israel, me'eit harav tarbu, from those who have a lot, or either are numerous in population, but I think here means numerous in wealth, because we can't assume that all the tribes were had the same wealth. Tarbu, you take much. Ume'eit ham'eit tam'itu, and for those who have little, you take little. Ish kafi, and it's made clear when it says next. Ish kafi nachalato asher yanchalu. According to the measure, the palm of each of his inheritance, will you take a portion. Yitain me'aryav laleviim. You will give from their cities to the Levites. Is that a bit clear so far?
Yes.
Another bit. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. And Moses spoke to Adonai. Sorry, and Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, Daber el bnei Israel, speak to the children of Israel, va'amarta alehem, and say to them, Ki atem ovrim et hayarden arza Canaan. When you are have crossed or are crossing the Jordan, to arza means is eretz with the directional hay, towards the land of Canaan. Hikritem lachem arim. You will establish for yourselves cities. Arei miklat tiyena lachem. And cities of refuge will they be to you. Vanas ozidnus. Vanas shama rotseach makei nefesh bishgaga. In order that a rotseach, it's defined in a moment, a rotseach can flee there. And a rotseach is defined as someone who strikes a life or strikes a soul. Makei nefesh, by accident, unintentionally. You lachem, and there will be to you he'arim lemiklat, cities of refuge, mi goel, from the avenger. The avenger is the family member who is entitled to take the life, if it's a murder, to take the life of the person who's done the murdering. Right? It's a technical legal term here. Velo yamut harotzeach, but the unintentional murder will not die ad amdo lifnei ha'edah lemishpat, until he's standing before the congregation for judgment. So he can't be killed if he's in the city until it's decided whether he is a rotzeach or not. Rotzeach bishkana. V'ha'arim asher tibnu sheish arei miklat, and the cities which you will give will be 6 cities of refuge tiyena, will be to you lachem. Et shalosh ha'arim tibnu me'ever le'yarden. 3 cities you will establish, you will give. It says from across the Jordan. It means when you're on that side, they'll be on that side of the Jordan. Get it? Vet shalosh ha'arim tibnu be'eretz Canaan. And the other, the 3 cities you will give in the land, or you will prepare or give, really means in the land of Canaan. Arei miklat tiyena, they will be the cities of refuge. Livnei Yisrael, for Israelites, for lager, and for the stranger, for latoshav, and for the resident alien, batocham, who is amongst you. Tiyena sheish he'arim ha'ile. These will lemiklat. That's why I stopped. Let me do it again. Tiyena, there will be to you sheish he'arim, 6 cities ha'ile. These ones, lemiklat, of refuge, lanus, shama, kol makei nefesh bishkaga. For the purpose of, I'm adding in these on the Hebrew, to flee there any person who takes a life unintentionally. And then it goes on to define how you can distinguish between a murder and a manslaughter. Partly about what they've used to kill the person and so forth. I think we'll stop there. Yeah. Amen. And now we're going to have a collective aliyah. I want you to turn to the Torah blessing in your book on page 482. Because we're going to read the last bit, the last verse of the book of Numbers, because we start Deuteronomy next week. So it's a special Torah reading for everybody. So if you read it together with me on page 482. Baruchu et Adonai HaMavorach. Baruch Adonai HaMavorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam. Asher barach banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai Elohein ha'torah. Ele mitzvot. These are the commandments. Hamishpatim, and the judgments. Asher tziva Adonai, which Adonai commanded. B'yad Moshe, by the hand of Moses, El Bnei Yisrael, all of the children of Israel, Arvot Moab, in the plains of Moab, Al Yarden Yircho, by the river Jordan near the city of Jericho. We can read together, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu torat emet, v'chayei olam natav b'tocheinu, Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. We say, Chazak, Chazak, Manit Chazek, be strong and be strengthened by any inspiration you find in the book of Numbers. Now, yeah, sure. Beginning of the book of No, I wouldn't have done that. I had to try to stop him.
Twist it. Twist the strap.
Do you want me to put my hand in tight? Way to do it. Make sure I don't damage it.
Bless you.
Find a little bit. It's a bit hard to do now. Let's do what we'll do. There we are. Is that a bit better? Well, there's Deuteronomy, so let's do it next week. When then,
You had to twist it before you cast it. No,
Just what?
different sides.
Oh, I see. Do you?
Sean.
Really? Oh, I see. You would have learned, don't you?
Never. Can't get stopped these
I'm a
days.
man. Is it? Oh, really?
Done.
Yeah.
No, right.
All right.
Muzzle top.
So please be seated. Haftarah is chapter 20. It's a short chapter from the book of Joshua.
It's on page 367 in the Tanakh. It's not in the JKSA. 367. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher בחר בנביאים טובים ורצה בדבריהם הנאמרים באמת. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בתורה ומשה עבדו וישראל עמו בנביאי האמת רצה. When they had finished dividing the land, the Lord said to Joshua, "Speak to the Israelites. Designate the cities of refuge about which I commanded you through Moses, to which a manslayer who kills a person by mistake unintentionally may flee. They shall serve you as a refuge from the blood avenger. He shall flee to one of those cities, present himself at the entrance of the city gate, and plead his case before the elders of that city, and they shall admit him into the city and give him a place in which to live among them. Should the blood avenger pursue him, they shall not hand the manslayer over to him, since he killed the other person without intent and had not been his enemy in the past. He shall live in that city until he can stand trial before the assembly, and remain there until the death of the high priest who is in office at that time. Thereafter, the manslayer may go back to his home in his own town, to the town from which he fled." So they set aside Kedesh in the hill country of Naphtali in Galilee, Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim, and Kiryat Arba, that is, Hebron, in the hill country of Judah. And across the Jordan, east of Jericho, they assigned Bezer in the wilderness, in the tableland, from the tribe of Reuben, Ramoth in Gilead from the tribe of Gad, and Golan in Bashan from the tribe of Manasseh. Those were the towns designated for all the Israelites and for aliens residing among them, to which anyone who killed a person unintentionally might flee, and not die by the hand of the blood avenger before standing trial by the assembly. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzor kol ha'olamim, tzaddik b'chol hadorot, האל הנאמן האומר ועושה, מדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. על התורה ועל העבודה, ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה, שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך, ומברכים אותך. יתברך שמך בפי כל חי, תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
So just note, by the way, that the cities were geographically spread out from north to south too. As we prepare now for the community prayers, I'd like somebody from the community to read the community one. Do you have any Israelis in today? Somebody can read from the State of Israel, and then we've got maybe a member of the council will read the community prayer. So we're on page 484. So anybody who'd like to read the prayer for the country, page 484.
I'll read it.
Oh, let's have somebody who hasn't read. Okay.
Pray for Boris.
Alright.
Prayer for the country, the Queen, the head of state, neutral head of state, and the government, and the opposition if you wish. All who hold office can be prayed for. All who hold office can be prayed for.
Eternal God, whose dominion embraces the universe, we ask for your blessing for our sovereign lady Queen Elizabeth and all the royal family, for those who govern our country and all who influence the quality of its national life. Make them conscious of their responsibility and teach them to exercise it in accordance with your will. May we all help to fashion in this country a society that excels in freedom and justice, tolerance and compassion, so that may be a force for righteousness and peace in the life of humanity.
Amen.
Amen.
Now, do we have an officer or member of the council who hasn't read?
Eternal God, as you
Carry on.
Eternal God, as you blessed our ancestors in generations past, bless now this congregation, its leaders and its members, and all who enter this synagogue to meet, to study and to pray. Comfort the sorrowing hearts among us, and heal those in anxiety and pain. May we all find community and friendship, renewal of purpose, and hope of deeper understanding of all our heritage, and a sense of your abiding presence. Bless all congregations of the house of Israel throughout the world. Let those who live under oppressive rule soon be freed, and may we all come to unite to witness to your truth and do your will.
Amen.
Amen.
And I'd like to congratulate Shirley for joining council.
Somebody for the State of Israel, please? Yes, thank you.
Eternal God, our rock and redeemer, grant blessing to the state of Israel, created to fulfill an age-old dream and to be a haven to the oppressed. Inspire its leaders and citizens with faithfulness to the aims of its founders, to develop the land for the benefit of all its inhabitants, and to implement the prophetic ideals of liberty and justice. May they live in harmony with one another and in peace with their neighbours, and cause to come true once more the ancient vision that out of Zion shall go forth Torah, and the word of God from Jerusalem.
Amen.
Amen.
Now we're just going to think about those who are not well. Do you have a list, or will we just...
No, we just do it.
Eternal God, we thank you for the gift of life and for the healing powers that you've implanted within your creatures. At the moment we're going to think of those members of our community and of our friends and family who we name, both those we name in our hearts and those that we're now going to read out aloud, speak out aloud.
Vivian Lacra and Ben Anthony.
Eddie Simons,
Arson Mike Solomon.
Jeanette Schindler.
Jessica Benton.
607.
And all those we've named aloud, all those we're thinking of who are not well, we ask that God sustain them through their time of illness. Grant them courage and strength to endure pain and weakness. Teach us, their loved ones, how best to help them by our love and care and by our own composure. May all who are ill know that you, God, are with them, comforting them and reinforcing their will to get well. May their affliction soon be ended, and may they return, if possible in health, to family and friends. May it be your will, eternal one, our God and God of our ancestors, speedily to grant a perfect healing of body and mind to all those who are sick. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei HaChol. We return to page 486. Yehallelu et Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado. Behold, a good doctrine has been given you, do not forsake it. It is a tree of life that holds it fast, and all who cling to it find happiness. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Ashireinu Adonai v'nashuva kadesh yameinu kekedem kadesh yameinu. So please be seated. We have a few minutes. When I was much younger, I was supposed to say that you're still young, but I won't wait for that. Thank you. When I was much younger, I went to Israel for the first time. When I started looking around and was just beginning to learn Hebrew, I saw all these words that said miklat. That's what he said. All over the place. You know, all public buildings, loads of houses would say miklat with an arrow. And I thought to myself, having only learned biblical Hebrew, blimey, what's going on in this society? There must be a lot of people bashing each other and killing each other if there has to be a miklat everywhere. And it took me a little while to realise that in modern Hebrew, of course, a miklat is a bomb shelter, right? Because you take refuge. I mean, you know, the Elias ben Yehuda, the founders of the Hebrew language, amazingly took the biblical language and moulded it into something new and appropriate. Well, obviously, it wasn't appropriate to have cities of refuge for unintentional murders. There's a court system, and a man, you know, you get charging mans or whatever. But they took the biblical word refuge and harbouring to mean it. If you hear the siren, so every Israeli kid knows, if you hear the siren, you look for the miklat. You look for the place of refuge. Not, of course, because the Redeemer's coming after you, but because of, how am I doing?
10 minutes, they've got.
Okay. Okay, we've got a lane, okay. But because, yeah. Now, so let me make another confession before I actually begin what I want to say. The thing about Brexit that really worries me is twofold. Nothing to do with Brexit, by the way, itself. No, we will decide as a country whether we're in or out. But two things have happened, I think. One is that we've just become ruder and more intolerant of each other as a society. I don't mean individuals. In the public discourse. And that I do find quite worrying. The only reason why I'm a fan of Jacob Rees-Mogg is because he's so polite. I mean, I don't necessarily use his ideas, but you have to say, I mean, lots of Labour MPs are telling exactly the same thing. You know, that he's brought up in a proper way, that he's immaculately polite. Even when he's being rude, he's immaculately polite, but he's actually...
That's thanks to his nanny.
I'm sure he was nice to nanny too. Sure he spanked him often enough if he was. The other problem I think we do have is that lots of other things that we needed to do have got left behind. We've got so tied up with preparation for Brexit, non-preparation for Brexit, the whole of the parliamentary drama that's going on, that we've forgotten sometimes as a society what's actually happening in parts of our society. And I'm not in favour of creating moral panics, but one of the things that does worry me is the number of young people who are on what I call the peripheries of crime. By the way, there are hundreds of thousands of young people who are wonderful young men and women who don't get involved at all. But I sit in a court which is on the outskirts of London, and I meet young people, and I know that many of them are very close, if not involved, to getting involved in things that are very dangerous to them. And let me say, I'm not blaming the young people, by the way. I'm blaming the people at the top who lead them, who we now hear that primary schools are having to search some of their pupils to find out if 8-year-olds are carrying drugs for somebody else to pass on. So it's not that I'm exaggerating, I don't wish to exaggerate it, I just say every 8-year-old and every primary school. But young people are, I was young once, and we were all young once, and we all had things we had to avoid. I don't know whether it was teddy boys or whatever it was we had to avoid. There's always been things going on. But I think what's happening now is that, we used to have to look out occasionally where we were, and now there are a whole group of young people who don't feel any longer safe or able to avoid crime in their local areas. Harrow and Brent are two of the boroughs where all the evidence is that unless we do something pretty quickly, we're going to have lost a generation of young people. And it set me thinking about the cities of refuge. I mean, it's slightly ironic today that some of the groups I'm working with have what we call shops of refuge. So there are shops now which have a sign outside saying, if you're in trouble, it's great, it's very interesting. If you're in trouble, you come into this shop. The shopkeeper's hoping, of course, they're not followed by a gang of 15 people when we get to these shops. But nevertheless, we have seen in some places they're creating cities of, shops of refuge. And maybe as a society we need to think about how we provide, obviously not cities of refuge in that way, but how we can provide some place of refuge for young people. And it will mean, I think, reinvesting in youth services and youth clubs. And it may not be the same as the youth clubs that, after all, Harrow and Wembley Liberal Synagogue was founded by a youth club, I believe, or was part of the, that system. It won't be that old-fashioned system again, I'm sure. But we need to find ways of finding a sanctuary for young people, which keeps them out of temptation and out of trouble. And I was very impressed. I don't know if you saw that young woman who, in hijab, who won the some horse thing, isn't it? I believe that she is involved in the riding school that's in the middle of Brixton. Can you believe it? In the middle of Brixton, I didn't know this. I used to live very close, but I didn't know. In the middle of Brixton,